We tried our best to give you the pros and cons, highlight the bad actors, but what we never do is forbid you to buy it, okay? Yeah, like for me, I did my best to at least point out, react to it. I'm not gonna bring myself to buy Ghost of YoTei, but I can recommend you buy Ghost of Tsushima. And I'm 100% certain it's still a good game because I overheard that Ghost of Tsushima, the player count for it has just shot up. This is what happens when you're desperate, you're panicking. You should know when that developer made, in this case, celebrate the death of Charlie Kirk, everything changes. The Streisand effect happened.
But alright, let's take a look at this narrative conjured out of whole cloth that Ghost of YoTei has outsold Ghost of Tsushima. Now, keep in mind that this is a game, Ghost of YoTei, that should outsell its predecessor, considering that the original was a brand new IP with no established fan base at all, and Ghost of Tsushima ended up being just about the best game released back in 2020. People fell in love with it, and the fact that it didn't end up beating The Last of Us Part 2 for the Game of the Year at the Game Awards that year is such a travesty of justice that the phenomenon deserves to be studied by historians to understand how in the hell the Game Awards got it so wrong.
Before that, I have to inform you that right now Expedition 33 has been snubbed by the Game Awards, which there's a possibility that Expedition 33 will not get nominated. Looks like Stuttering Craig is going to be the one to nominate it. Stuttering Craig and Side Scroller, perhaps you should do it again. The real Game Awards. Now again, the real question is, when it comes to Ghost of YoTei or Ghost of Tsushima, will it sell in Japan? Ghost of Tsushima only sell well as the first Western titles to sell well in Japan, okay? So we haven't heard anything from it, so let's wait.
With that pedigree in its corner this time, Ghost of YoTei, and I am not exaggerating when I say this, but Ghost of YoTei should sell something like 4 or 5 million copies in its first week or so, doubling the roughly 2.4 million that Ghost of Tsushima sold in its first 3 days. If this narrative that they're trying to push is true, that Ghost of YoTei is barely outselling Tsushima, but if it's true, then that is a major disappointment for Sony. And keep in mind that I fully expect this game to sell a few million in its first weekend. Those will be the die-hard Sony fanboys, the cultural auto-intake zombies, and the progressive freaks who want to show solidarity with the likes of Erika Ishii, the activist lead actor in the game,
and also a terrorist organization, Antifa. Seriously, folks, why does people still turn a blind eye? Seriously, evidence have been pointed out. Erika Ishii supports Antifa, a terrorist organization. Yet, Sucker Punch Studio and Sony doesn't do anything about it. It doesn't matter whether it's a game or not. She supports Antifa. That should be a red flag.
From those people. So, this narrative of theirs isn't far off from what I expect to be the truth. But the fact that people are running with this number of 1 million copies sold in the first day is extremely telling when they are doing it without any confirmation from Sony or Sucker Punch themselves.
That's right.
They are nervous. These people are nervous because they know that the cultural right, the chuds, have tanked the sales of a lot of games in the past, and they are desperate to prove that they don't need us. But let's read this article here.
Okay, before we let Dr. Disaster continue, I had to ask this question. What's with these people keep buying new games every time it comes out? I mean, I know people watch reviews and all that, but when people buy new games every time, it's beyond me. I mean, do these people who buy new games ever seen a backlog or a video game backlog or something? Seriously, it's beyond me.
Uncritically accept the sales number provided by the so-called insider account, claiming that Ghost of YoTei is already an astonishing success. This comes to us here from the website Tech for Gamers, and it says, despite all the controversy surrounding the game, Ghost of YoTei has come out on top and has managed to garner a mostly positive reception from both the players and the critics. It is reportedly even doing well in the sales department, according to some new information. I love how they don't explain where this new information comes from before they just assert it as if it's fact, as they're about to do in just a second here. But anyhow, they say, According to some new information, Ghost of YoTei has already sold over 1 million copies on its first day. It is selling at a faster pace than its predecessor, Ghost of Tsushima, which will be a welcome sign for Sucker Punch. Why it matters. Before the release, YoTei's success looked questionable based on the people's reactions and the political comments the studio made. However, it is thriving based on the sales figures. Just look at all of that assertive language there, saying that the game is thriving, saying that it is selling at a faster pace than its predecessor. These people really need this to be the case. Anyhow, here in the article, they show the actual original tweet where this person says, hearing 1.3 million sold in first day for YoTei, ever so slightly ahead of Tsushima's first 24 hours of 1.25 million. Tsushima kept pace on its second day with another 1.15 million sold. Can YoTei keep up? And do you want to know one of the biggest reasons why this tweet is likely bullshit? This person got basic facts wrong. She says that Tsushima sold 1.15 million in its second day, suggesting that the game hit 2.4 million sales in 2 days. But Sony clearly announced in this old tweet here that the game sold 2.4 million in 3 days. So either Ghost.
Okay, first and foremost, I'm so sorry I had to let the video play way longer. There are times where those points you had to let it, well, let's just say you had to let the video play out, let it cook, and then give your opinion. Although there are some times where I had to let the video play because you know how it is, when you need to get your point across, you had to get through all the rant, you know how it is. You know, people rant all the time. So it's difficult for me to get my point across. So again, there's no confirmation yet. Remember, Sony and Sucker Punch hasn't made any announcement. But sadly, this person, whoever is writing this article, they couldn't just help it. They are impatient,
so,
right?
Either Ghost of Tsushima didn't sell any copies at all on day 3, or this supposed insider got very basic facts wrong, calling their credibility completely into question, and it calls into question the journalistic integrity of this website Tech for Gamers, who didn't bother to do the same level of basic fact-checking that I did. Instead of looking into these basic facts that this scooper messed up, they wrote below the image of this tweet, according to insider Millie Amand, Ghost of YoTei on its first day sold 1.3 million copies, while Ghost of Tsushima sold 1.25 million, which puts it ahead of its predecessor. It will be seen whether it can keep it up in the long run. As of 2024, Ghost of Tsushima had sold over 13 million copies, which is a decent number for an exclusive title, but in that time frame, it also released on PC. The general response towards YoTei is more positive, hinting at good things to come. And you know what? Like I said, I fully expect to find out that Ghost of YoTei sold a few million copies in its first few days. The numbers that we saw on PSN profiles does not suggest that this will be the case, but I expect that the game will hit those numbers anyhow. Ghost of Tsushima built up a lot of fan goodwill after all, and there are a bunch of normies out there.
Yes, there will be a lot of normies. There is one way to track, but it's not a guarantee solution or anything. You have to opt for the PSN count. I checked on Smash JT's video. Yeah, so far it's got like what? Less than 8,000 players or something like that. Yes, it's still in the holidays, or in this case the weekend. It could bump up a bit. Yes, short term it could succeed, but long term it won't.
Does not suggest that this will be the case, but I expect that the game will hit those numbers anyhow. Ghost of Tsushima built up a lot of fan goodwill after all, and there are a bunch of normies out there who will want to buy the game because of the nostalgia of Ghost of Tsushima.
That could be true.
The marketing campaign for Ghost of YoTei has been massive. The reported development budget for Ghost of YoTei is only $60 million, which is why this game will, in fact, make money for Sony. Sucker Punch was obviously very disciplined in their development, but based on the advertising blitzkrieg that we have seen over the past few days, indistinguishable from the marketing of other big budget games like Dragon Age the Veilguard or Borderlands 4, well, I imagine that Sony spent the usual $100 million or so on
That's
marketing.
a lot of money.
This means that Ghost of YoTei will need probably around $160 million to break even, which should be something that they readily achieve in their first month or so. About 3 million copies would accomplish this, but this game should have been a major hit. It should have helped them make up for all the lost money that they had with the likes of Concord last year. Building on the wild success of Tsushima, and the real struggle that this game has right now is with the game journalists pushing this narrative that the chuds are not needed in order to sell copies. That is why this article that we looked at is doing the whole fake it till you make it BS, but this game ought to be bragging about 4 or 5 million in sales numbers, if not for all of the controversial shit.
Yes, it will sell. How long will it take until Sony announce it? Because right now, I saw Ghost of Tsushima's numbers go up. And understand one thing, this game was released on the PS5 only, okay? Not everyone has a PS5. Some people, most of the time, are PC, okay? And the real question is, what is the sentiment on Ghost of YoTei in Japan? Don't forget, Ghost of Tsushima was one of the few Western titles to ever have a positive success on Japan. Because of the recent Assassin's Creed Shadows, every Japanese gamers prefer Ghost of Tsushima than Assassin's Creed Shadows. So I'd be curious to see what the sentiment on Japan looks like. But until then, we have to wait. I mean, seriously, how do people still buy new games is beyond me. I mean, I still have a backlog of it. And also, the last two games, I do mean the last two new games that I will be playing is Lost Soul Aside and also Silent Hill F, which I'm gonna be coming back to that for mainly it is for Spooky Night, since it is Halloween month.
Hay un rumor de un extranjero entre nosotros.
Nuestro jefe se cuidará de la rata. Si la plaga es mucho mejor que la nuestra.
Tienes razón. Es un hombre.
What? Same blood.